Well, welcome back for those of you who have been following the Living Island, and for those of you maybe joining for the first time. I'm going to talk about forest biodiversity. Forests of all sorts cover 30% of the Earth's terrestrial surface. Now think about that. Of all the land on Earth, 30% is covered by forests. And those forests support 80% of the global terrestrial biodiversity. 80%. However, climate change, and of course human influence, which is also triggering climate change, are affecting the forest compositions of all sorts, from boreal to tropical, the area that they once had, and the structure that they naturally have. Forests, like any other living thing, reacts to both natural and artificial action because it affects the interactions that take place in the forest and the interconnections that take place in the forest. And all of these interactions and interconnections are processes which are both self-regulating within the forest structure and also self-perpetuating from this point to the future. And when left alone in a healthy way, it increases the forest resistance to whatever may come, and also its resilience to kind of have strength to deal with it. Now, biodiversity is, in a sense, complexity. This means a forest, like anything else, has to maximize the functionality of the natural energy in the system itself. Basically, that refers to what I just said. It's working with those self-regulating processes according to the evolutionary continuum of the ecosystem, with the aim of increasing that system's self-perpetuation. Basically, if you look at yourself, you're a little kid, you go to school, you learn stuff, you go to school, you learn more stuff, you get a job, you increase your experiences. The forest does the same thing. Life does the same thing. What it really is that energy is flowing through the ecosystem, and all the matter is being recycled. That's the simple way of looking at it. When you're looking at forest biodiversity, especially here in New Brunswick, in the Maritimes, there are two main forces. We're still in, even though most people don't see it this way, a post-glacial recovery of the forest over the last 10,000 years. I mean, keep in mind, where I sit right now, at one point, say 20,000 years ago or 200,000 years ago, there was a kilometer of ice right here, pressing down. There was nothing here whatsoever. 10,000 years ago, it melts. Well, it takes time to come back, and that's what is still going on. The second thing, though, is the human impact that happened again about 10,000 years ago. As the glaciers were melting, the indigenous people were following mainly herds of woodland caribou into this area, going up into Quebec. Well, they settled here. I mean, Metapanagia, has mounds, their burial mounds of 3,500 to 4,000 years ago. The people were here even before that, settling it down. Then you get grazing for animals. You get agriculture, where the land is opened up by the forest leaving, and lumbering, which takes what's ever left. And this progress or civilization, whichever you want to call it, interfered and still interferes with the natural forest ecosystem. And that leads to a modification in the forest biota, the living things, animals and plants. Now, strangely as this may sound, but the key factors for maintaining biodiversity are not leaving it alone in a very stable equilibrium balance. No. It's fire, wind, flood, insects, birds, moose, beaver. These are the things that interact and change the forest. Then you have human actions. They just open up wide areas most of the time and lead to other stuff happening that nature may not do. When you're looking at a concept of sustainable forestry, it's interesting. It goes back to 1713, 250 years ago. I remember attending the first Earth Day. I was in Central Park in New York, that's where I'm from. And, we sat there going, look at what we're doing. We're saving the planet and things are going to change. And here we are decades later. It wasn't a new idea at all. And we haven't done much with it. Biodiversity can be defined as having three main elements. There is the ecosystem composition, the structure, and the function. These continually work that way. But, as nature would have it, there are things that are called non-linear thresholds. Most just people call them flips. And all they do is correspond to sudden changes in the structure and in the content. And this goes back to things like fire, wind, floods, things like that, big stuff. Because if the change is intense enough, it could be crossing a critical threshold, which the forest at that point is not prepared for. And that can have serious implications in biodiversity. Thus, conservation is needed to ensure ecosystem integrity and health. Now, if people imagine Canada, the boreal forest must seem huge, without threats, going on forever. I mean, that's an image people have of Canada, and of course we have part of the boreal forest here in New Brunswick. You see it throughout northern Russia, you see it throughout Scandinavia. However, it's estimated now that the remaining, and this is important, the remaining portion of more or less intact boreal forest globally is only 20% of what it was. 80% has been affected in one way or another. A semi-boreal forest, which I consider New Brunswick, because we have mixed as well, is down to 2%. For a mixed temperate forest, which is here in the Miramichi area, but more so in the southern tier of New Brunswick, it's only 0.2%. Things are going down. New Brunswick has the longest history of intensive forest management of all the Canadian forests, provinces. The New Brunswick forest is dominated by mixed stands of deciduous and conifers, with the dominance of conifer trees, the boreal forest. And public land represents only 50% of this province. Now, I'm going to continue with more biodiversity next time. I'm going to leave it for now. So, see you in 2 weeks. Till then, take care.